I want you to take a second and try to recall a really specific, really unsettling feeling.
Oh, this is a good one.
Right. Okay, so think about a time when you were lost in a place that seemed deeply, almost intimately familiar to you, but at the exact same time, it felt fundamentally wrong.
Like an uncanny valley type of situation.
Exactly. Maybe it was like walking through your old elementary school in the dead of night where all the proportions just felt totally off.
Yeah, or waking up in a hotel room that somehow has the exact same layout as your childhood bedroom, but, realizing the door is on the wrong wall.
Yes. That exact sinking feeling.
It's this really profound type of cognitive dissonance because your brain immediately recognizes the overarching pattern.
Or a basic blueprint of the space.
Exactly, the geometry of a hallway or the standard height of a ceiling, but all of the contextual clues are just completely broken.
And there's a clinical reason for why that feels so bad, isn't there?
There is. The technical term in some of the architectural psychology papers we're looking at today is a failure of predictive coding.
Predictive coding.
Right. So your nervous system is constantly predicting what should happen next in a space. And when a space refuses to behave the way it's supposed to, it triggers a primal alarm bell.
Which brings us perfectly to the core mission of our deep dive today.
It really does.
We are looking at a really dense stack of materials you sent over for us to analyze. I mean, it includes everything from early film critic reviews to academic breakdowns of internet folklore.
Yeah, and some really fascinating psychological profiles on spatial awareness, too.
Right. And we are using all of this to dissect the 2026 psychological horror film, Backrooms.
Directed by the young, exceptionally talented filmmaker Kane Parsons.
Yes. And this movie somehow manages to take that exact evolutionary alarm bell we were just talking about and stretch it into a 2-hour cinematic masterpiece.
And, the journey of this concept is almost as compelling as the narrative itself.
Oh, totally, because Parsons didn't start with, like, a traditional Hollywood script.
No, not at all. He essentially adapted a digital ghost story.
Right, from the internet.
Exactly. This entire universe began years ago as a viral internet meme. It was just a single unnerving image of a yellow hallway accompanied by a short paragraph about clipping out of reality.
Which is such a wild origin for a feature film.
It is. And the challenge, and frankly the triumph of the film, is how it transforms that static, creepy aesthetic into a deeply layered character study.
That's how it secured an 8.5 out of 10 critical consensus.
Which is nearly unheard of for modern existential horror. I mean, critics usually tear these things apart.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the movie, you really have to understand the environment.
You can't separate the two.
The entire aesthetic of this film is built around the concept of a liminal space. So for anyone listening who might be picturing your standard horror movie
A Gothic crumbling castle.
Right, or a fog-drenched forest, I need you to completely erase that from your mind.
Completely.
The setting of this film is nothing but endless, mustard yellow hallways.
And we mean truly endless.
It is so suffocating. You have this ugly, dated patterned carpet that looks like it hasn't been vacuumed since, like, 1993.
The harsh, buzzing glow of fluorescent lights flickering above.
But that buzzing sound, it never stops. And the lights cast zero shadows. Plus, the rooms are completely, utterly empty, and they just connect to more empty rooms.
The architectural papers in our source stack actually highlight why this specific banality is so terrifying to the human brain.
I found that part so interesting.
Right, because these are designed as transit spaces. Hallways, waiting rooms, corridors, they are just architectural tissue meant to connect point A to point B.
They aren't meant to be destinations themselves.
Exactly. They are not destinations. So when you remove point A and point B, and you're left only with a transit space stretching into infinity, your brain panics.
Because it serves no purpose.
Yes. The environment is aggressively corporate, entirely mundane, yet completely hostile to human life because it has no function.
The best analogy I can think of to really put you in that headspace right now as you're listening is that gut-dropping feeling of being stuck inside an empty office building.
Oh, yeah.
Or like a massive dead shopping mall long after closing time.
That is the exact feeling.
Because these are spaces engineered down to the millimeter for masses of people. They're built for movement and commerce and noise.
So when you strip the people away,
the silence you're left with doesn't feel peaceful. It feels incredibly heavy. It feels terrifyingly devoid of the life that is supposed to be occupying it.
What's fascinating here is how the film weaponizes that heavy silence on a technical level.
Yeah, talk about the cinematography because it's so specific.
Parsons makes a very deliberate, really risky choice to avoid almost every traditional horror trope.
Which is so refreshing.
If you go into Backrooms expecting a roller coaster of constant jump scares, or, a grotesque monster leaping out from behind every corner, you will be totally thrown off balance.
You'll be waiting a long time.
Right. The director uses these incredibly long, unbroken tracking shots, and the camera sits in deep focus.
Meaning everything down the hallway is perfectly crisp and clear.
Exactly. It completely denies you the comfort of shadows.
That deep focus is such a crucial detail, because there is literally nowhere for a monster to hide.
Nowhere.
And honestly, there are basically zero cheap scares in the entire runtime.
The dread is built entirely through anticipation. By removing the traditional physical threat, the environment itself becomes the antagonist.
It's all in your head.
Because your brain is conditioned by years of watching movies to expect a payoff to the tension, right? You expect a monster, a loud noise, a chase sequence.
But it just never comes.
When the film refuses to provide that release, the space feels exponentially more oppressive. You, as the viewer, are constantly anticipating a danger that just refuses to reveal itself.
And as any good psychologist will tell you, a human's imagination will always conjure something far worse to fill a void than what a special effects team can build on a soundstage.
100%.
It is a masterclass in atmospheric tension. But, let's be real, a creepy environment, no matter how psychologically grounded, can only carry a 2-hour movie so far.
Right, a static shot of an empty hallway is an architectural study, not a narrative.
Exactly. To make a story, you need a catalyst. You need a human variable. And that brings us to the protagonist, Clark, and the massive narrative pivot this movie makes.
And Clark is such a brilliant subversion of the typical horror protagonist.
He really is.
We usually see, teenagers making bad decisions or a family moving into a haunted house. But Clark is a middle-aged, deeply struggling furniture store owner.
Which is such a brilliant, ironic detail. I mean, he literally sells the items designed to make an empty space feel like a home.
The irony is so heavy there.
Yet, we meet him at a point where his own life is completely devoid of warmth. It's so important to note that his life is actively falling apart long before he ever sets foot in the Backrooms.
Oh, absolutely. The business is bankrupt. His personal relationships are crumbling.
He is a man who is already emotionally lost.
He's incredibly vulnerable. And looking at the critical reviews we have, a lot of analysts point out that Clark is essentially looking for an escape, consciously or subconsciously.
Because reality is just too much.
Right. The mundane reality of his life has become a series of unmanageable failures.
Then he discovers it. He stumbles upon this mysterious physical passage in his store's stockroom that allows him to clip out of the normal world and into the Backrooms.
And normal logic would dictate he leaves immediately.
Right. A rational person would take one look at an infinite, buzzing yellow purgatory and run screaming in the opposite direction.
But he doesn't.
No, Clark develops this fatal obsession with the hidden world. He keeps going back. He deliberately ventures deeper and deeper into the maze.
That behavior speaks volumes about the human condition, doesn't
It
it?
really does. It's so sad.
The real world has become so painful, so full of accountability for his failures, that an endless, sterile labyrinth is somehow alluring to him.
Because it's empty.
Exactly. It's a total disconnection from his immediate reality. Even though the escape is objectively terrifying, it requires absolutely no emotional responsibility.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Oh yes, the pivot.
Because as Clark navigates further, the movie peels back its defining layer. The Backrooms aren't just endless geometry or like a glitch in reality.
No, not at all.
The script reveals that the maze is a psychological sponge.
This is the massive leak the narrative takes from its internet meme origins. It gives the architectural space an active, almost predatory consciousness.
It's alive, in a way.
It absorbs the memories, the hidden fears, and the heavy emotional baggage of whoever steps inside it.
It literally reads its occupant.
Yes. Then it begins to recreate those elements in distorted, surreal ways. It uses your own psyche as the architectural blueprint for the horror it subjects you to.
I love that concept, but I actually want to push back a little on the idea of it being an active predator, just based on how Clark's journey unfolds.
So I'm curious.
Because watching his descent, I kept questioning the causality. Like, does the maze actually create his madness? Or is it simply acting as a passive funhouse mirror for a life that was already self-destructing.
That is a highly debated interpretation among the critics in our source stack, actually.
Really, because it feels less like a predator hunting him and more like a blank canvas that he is violently projecting his own trauma onto.
The distinction between the maze as a predator versus a projector is crucial. If it's merely a projector, then the horror is entirely self-inflicted.
Right, he's torturing himself.
But the visual language of the film suggests the maze amplifies what it absorbs. It doesn't just passively reflect Clark's failure, it weaponizes it against him.
Oh, I see.
It forces him into a state of hyper-confrontation with his own mind.
Weaponized therapy. That's exactly what it felt like to me.
Weaponized therapy, I like that phrase.
Because normal therapy asks you to sit in a safe room and mentally walk through your failures, your regrets, and your flaws to process them.
In a controlled environment.
Exactly. But the Backrooms literally force you to physically navigate them. The maze builds a tangible geographical map of your worst mistakes, and the only way forward is to literally walk through it.
And the pacing of that therapy is what drives the tension of the film. It doesn't happen the moment he steps through the threshold.
It's a slow burn.
Right. As Clark's grip on reality loosens, the maze subtly begins to manifest twisted echoes of his life.
Like the hallway scenes.
Yes. We see a hallway that suddenly resembles the aisle of his failing furniture store, but the dimensions are all stretched out and wrong.
And the audio cues, too.
We hear distorted audio fragments of arguments from his crumbling personal life echoing from these empty rooms. The environment is extracting his internal conflicts and making them external.
Which brings us to the climax of his journey. Because the final act of Clark's story is breathtakingly bleak.
It's so dark.
By the end, he isn't running from some generic shadow monster. The maze forces him to literally confront a monstrous version of himself.
It is a devastating sequence. And importantly, it completely avoids traditional CGI monster fights.
Exactly. I mean, building on that, the design of this monster isn't an alien or a demon.
No.
The director visualizes it as this terrifying, unidentifiable amalgamation of Clark's own features mixed with the detritus of his failures.
Like broken furniture and ruined personal items.
Yeah, it is everything wrong with him, his complete self-loathing given physical mass and momentum.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of psychological horror, this confrontation is the absolute emotional core of the film.
Without a doubt.
Because the Backrooms don't just lazily copy a person's physical form like a standard clone story.
Right, it's not a sci-fi cloning bay.
They isolate and replicate the absolute darkest, most repressed parts of the human psyche. They distill your regret into an entity that shares your space.
And the terrible realization here is the absolute unwinnability of the scenario. I mean, how do you fight your own regrets?
You really can't.
You can't just punch your own depression in the face and walk away victorious.
No, because destroying that manifestation would mean destroying a fundamental part of yourself.
Exactly.
The entity knows every move Clark will make because it is him. It represents the impossibility of outrunning your own nature.
So Clark is essentially consumed by his own demons, literally and metaphorically swallowed by the maze.
A very grim ending for him.
But the movie doesn't roll credits there. This is where the narrative introduces its most complex puzzle piece, bringing in the supporting character, Mary Klein.
Mary Klein, Clark's therapist, her entry into the narrative drastically shifts the boundaries of what we understand about the Backrooms.
Right, because Mary pieces together where Clark has gone. And driven by this intense sense of professional duty, or maybe hubris, honestly, thinking her psychological expertise can conquer a psychological maze.
Definitely a bit of hubris there.
She deliberately crosses the threshold to find him. But her presence proves something absolutely terrifying.
It proves this phenomenon isn't a closed loop isolated to Clark's broken mind.
It's a universal sponge. It transforms everything and everyone it touches.
The environment doesn't discriminate. The moment she enters, the maze begins reading her just as it read Clark.
But it looks different for her.
Because her mind is structured differently. Her experience of the horror shifts. She is navigating the horrors of the space, witnessing the psychological wreckage the place has wrought on her patient.
And this all builds to the ending, the final twist that has spawned thousands of debate threads online.
The ending is just brilliant.
The twist is phenomenal. Let's lay out exactly what the viewer sees in those final moments. So Mary navigates this nightmare. Against all odds, she actually manages to find a structural exit.
It's this huge moment of relief.
We watch her burst out of the yellow hallways, stumbling back into the real world. And the visual language shifts dramatically, right?
The harsh fluorescent lighting is suddenly replaced by natural sun.
And the oppressive buzzing is gone, replaced by the ambient noise of a city. It is framed entirely as a moment of triumph.
She survived the impossible.
But then, right before the screen cuts to black, the camera pulls us all the way back, deep into the heart of the Backrooms.
It pans across a newly constructed room within the maze.
A room that perfectly resembles Mary's real-world therapy office. And sitting inside that room, trapped, is a duplicate version of Mary.
The implication just drops the floor out from under the viewer.
It's wild.
The maze had already copied her before she escaped.
It's an absolute gut punch of an ending. And as I was reading through the critical analyses in our sources, my mind immediately latched onto a classic philosophical thought experiment.
Oh, the teleportation one.
Yes. The ending of this film is essentially a horror adaptation of the teleportation paradox.
The teleportation paradox is the perfect lens for this.
Think about this for a second as you're listening. The teleportation paradox asks a very uncomfortable question about identity.
It really does.
Imagine a machine scans every single atom in your body, perfectly memorizes your neural pathways, your memories, your personality. It then destroys your original body, beams that data to Mars, and reconstructs an exact, living, breathing copy of you out of new atoms.
A perfect replica.
Right. And the entity on Mars wakes up, remembers walking into the scanner on Earth, and feels completely like you. The question is, did you travel to Mars? Or did you just die on Earth and a clone woke up with your stolen memories?
It's the ultimate crisis of the continuity of consciousness. Are we just data? Or is there an unbroken thread of experience required to be real?
Exactly. So, applying that terrifying paradox to the film, which Mary is the real Mary,
That's the million-dollar question.
is the woman who escaped the original, meaning a tragic sentient clone was just birthed into an eternity of yellow hallways?
Which is horrifying on its own.
Or, and this is the far more disturbing option, I think, did the maze keep the original Mary trapped in that fake office, digesting her slowly, and merely spit out a perfect, walking, talking replica back into our world?
The academic papers dissecting the film's narrative argue that this raises the ultimate question of the movie. What is the actual nature of the horror here?
Right, because it shifts.
Throughout the first act, we assume the fear is physical entrapment, the claustrophobia of being locked in a liminal space forever. But the ending reveals the true horror is the total, unconsenting loss of identity.
The idea that your identity, the very essence of who you are, can just be plagiarized by an architectural anomaly.
Okay, copy.
That everything that makes you who you are, your memories, your empathy, your professional skills, can be downloaded and copy-pasted. It makes human uniqueness feel incredibly fragile.
And that profound ambiguity is the genius of Parsons' direction. It is precisely why the film refuses to offer a definitive answer.
Because an answer would ruin it.
If the director holds your hand and confirms, yes, the clone escaped, then it just becomes an invasion movie.
Well, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Exactly. And if he confirms no, the original escaped, then it's just a sad story about a trapped copy.
By forcing the viewer to live in the gray area, the film posits a much darker, much more pervasive theme, which is that the Backrooms don't just imprison people, they slowly, methodically recreate them. The maze digests identity and weaponizes the leftovers.
So when we step back and look at the entirety of this deep dive, synthesizing the critical reviews, the architectural psychology, and the narrative structure of Kane Parsons' 2026 film, we see a complete redefinition of environmental horror.
It entirely shifts the axis of fear. It moves the terror from what is lurking in this physical room to what is lurking inside my own head.
Because the room itself is empty.
The room is perfectly safe. It's your own consciousness that is the dangerous place to be. It is an unforgettable, visually stunning experience that just burrows under your skin and stays there because it uses your own mind against you.
There is a specific sentiment floating around the critical discussions in our source stack that perfectly encapsulates the film's brilliance.
Oh, let's hear it.
A reviewer wrote, "The scariest thing in the Backrooms isn't what is waiting around the corner. It is what the maze remembers about you."
Wow. What the maze remembers about you. That is a chilling phrase.
It really sticks with you.
Because it implies the environment is actively paying attention. It is taking meticulous notes on your flaws, your regrets, your darkest moments. It's the ultimate observer.
You aren't trying to outrun a monster. You are desperately trying not to become permanently trapped inside your own unresolved guilt.
Which brings us right back to the feeling we started this conversation with. That sensation of being lost in a place that is intimately familiar, yet completely wrong.
It all comes full circle.
The movie masterfully argues that the most familiar yet terrifying place you could ever be trapped in is the unedited landscape of your own mind.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean? Well, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over today. Think about how the Backrooms operate. They absorb and recreate the specific memories, the hidden fears, and the heavy emotional baggage that you carry with you every single day.
We all have them.
We do. Take a second right now to really think about your own unresolved conflicts. The things you push down, the regrets you try not to think about when you're lying awake at night.
The stuff you hide from the world.
If you were to accidentally click out of reality, if you suddenly found yourself standing under those harsh, pleasant fluorescent lights, staring down an endless mustard yellow hallway, what exactly would the